customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DeJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DeJulius. This week, John sits down with entrepreneur and author Hank Ebeling. Hank has built his successful fitness centers by focusing on the member experience. In this episode, you'll learn why most small businesses aren't able to deliver world-class service, the easiest things any business can do right now to better their customer service, what the biggest mistakes are that businesses make with integrating new hires into their culture, and the power of surprise and delight. Now here's your host, John DeJulius.
Hello, revolutionaries, and welcome to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I am John DeJulius, Chief Revolution Officer, and today I am honored to have Hank Ebeling, who is the founder of H4 Training Gyms and author of Crushing the Competition with Service. Welcome, Hank.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Actually, I am honored to be on this podcast because not only is it one of my favorite podcasts, but you've been a huge influence on me from a business career standpoint and even bigger from a customer service and customer experience standpoint. So honored to be here and give as much value to your listeners as possible.
I know you will. Thank you, Hank, for saying that. And, I don't know our age difference. How old are you?
38.
38. Yeah, I kind of feel like watching your career, you're 20 years younger than me, and you're, following kind of my, whole thing. You opened up a small business and it became well known for customer service. And now you're speaking on it and you're doing wrote a book on it. So yeah, fill our listeners in on what your journey's been.
Yeah, so for me, I actually went to college in Las Vegas, UNLV. And to me, the whole service thing started with my first job, which if anyone's been to Las Vegas, I'm sure you're familiar with the Venetian Hotel. And within the Venetian is a very famous spa called Canyon Ranch Spa. And maybe many of you have been there. They're known for their hospitality, the services, their service. And I worked actually in the gym within Canyon Ranch. And one of my first managers, bosses, whatever you want to call her, she was this English woman straight from England, spent her whole career in hospitality. And she was totally in your face when it came to anything that had to do with the customer and service and positioning, how you spoke to them, how you stood. And so that was kind of an early lesson and a kind of early point in my career of the importance that makes on the guest from a service standpoint. So that was very influential on myself from that point moving forward. And from that point, always stayed in fitness. I worked in different gyms, generally high-end gyms throughout my whole career. Many people might be familiar with the brand Equinox. Spent 7 years at Equinox managing, training, again, another high-end facility known for service, known for a great experience, and just kind of loved the whole aspect of the competitive advantage. In my field, fitness is very competitive. That could create a separation point for somebody new in the field, which I was. And I used that to my advantage to kind of grow my business. And later, as I opened my own gym, used it once again, as I like to say, as my business superpower.
And so how many gym locations do you have?
We have 2 locations.
Okay. And they're in the Illinois, Chicago area?
Yeah, we're western suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, great. And then how did you get into the speaking? And you have your own podcast, which is called what?
Success Trails Podcast.
Success Trails Podcast, which I've been a guest on. And how'd you get into being a subject matter expert, wrote a book, and you speak on this?
Well, as I mentioned, had numerous influences. Again, my original manager, you've been a huge influence to kind of stoke that fire and passion. A lot of it just, you mentioned on my podcast, which was, you start doing business, you're applying a lot of these things from a customer service standpoint, and people start to take notice. We have lots of clients that are small business owners, and they would ask, hey, whoever's on your team, they just seem to always give great service, whether they're day one or day 500. How do you do that? When you're not here, how come it doesn't matter? All those things. So slowly just started trying to help them out. And that's why I decided to write the book, especially from a small business standpoint. I think customer service has been dying, right? If it ever was there to begin with. And then just kind of got a passion, talking about it and started speaking on it.
It's funny, Hank, I don't know if you were like this, but 25 years ago, I was getting going and speaking. I thought owning salons would hurt my credibility, right? When I was trying to, get out, and I thought, people don't want to hear from a salon owner. It's small, and a lot of these companies or conferences have bigger company representation. So I started de-emphasizing on my bio, my speaker bio, these salons. I put them at the bottom. Sometimes I took them off. And then I found out it was a huge mistake, because almost every CEO that introduced me to, and he would say, or she would say, why they brought me in would be because he's not just theorizing, right? He is sitting, at the pointy end of the spear. He knows what it's like to manage payroll and create these systems and all that. And I was like, what an idiot I am. And that was my advantage. And I didn't know it was my advantage, because a lot of experts haven't done it themselves. And you have. And so, wow, that was a really learning curve. And also being a small business owner, large companies want to, act small, and they want to give that personalized service. And that's why they look at us. I don't know if you had the same, or you were just smarter than me and knew it was an advantage.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, you said it. If you look at experts in sales and marketing, whatever, a lot of it is just, this is what I think can work. I'm trying to just sell you on something. But you're right. When you actually are down and dirty in it, in the grind every day, you actually know what works, what doesn't work. And so I think that's a huge advantage versus just kind of talking about theory, but actually what is being applied and then what works.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you think small businesses, why do you think small businesses aren't able to deliver world-class service, or as you call it, superhero? Why can't they? And maybe what's from your perspective, what's the difference between a larger company and a smaller company?
Yeah, to answer that first question, I think it really comes down to the leader. And I think, and I know you talk about this, that they don't have the right mindset, that people first, people-centric mindset. And I also think they just assume, you talk about service aptitude. And I think a lot of, especially small business owners, just assume, well, I'm hiring John. Yeah, he's going to know the importance of smiling. He's going to know the importance of, talking in the interest of the guest. But we know that that can't be an assumption. And for most of the small businesses, you're getting an employee that's young, who has very little experience. So I just think everyone that I've met from a small business owner standpoint just makes that assumption, and then they don't have that right mindset from the beginning. So then how is their team going to have that mindset of a service first business? And then your other question was the difference between small.
Yeah. What do you think?
In terms of delivering outstanding service, I think small businesses, you can react quicker and you can apply things quicker than a large business can. But to me, the principles are kind of the same. I mean, yeah, if you're larger, you have to put it across thousands of employees potentially, but it's still the same type of principles. I come from a fitness background. Working out, the principles are the same, whether you're 80 or 15, whether it's for sports or the everyday Jane and Joe's, principles don't change. Maybe the way you attack it does. So I think there's less difference than people might think.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot of what you said. I think when entrepreneurs, when we first get into it, maybe we get it. For those of us who get it, the importance, and then we assume everyone else does, right? And kind of the mistake I made was when we first started, 30 years ago, our salons, we were really good at customer experience. Now, the reason why was 50% of the staff was me and my wife. So whether you got it or you didn't get it, you didn't have a choice. You had to work next to us and do what we did and all that. But our customer experience started going backwards as we got bigger and opened multiple locations, and we weren't next to you, or next to everyone. And all of a sudden it became employee roulette. Employee roulette is when your experience is dependent on which employee you deal with. If you got Hank, oh, crushed it. But if you got, Sandy, oh, hope she didn't have a fight with her boyfriend last night, or, whatever it was. So that's what really made me study. But yeah, I love that. I think the biggest advantage of a small business. So I get, this with small businesses, and that they'll argue that larger businesses have more resources, right? They have more budget. They can't have a full-time CXO on staff. They can have a full-time this, that, whatever. Yes, but what they can is try to change something in a large business is trying to turn a yacht in a bathtub, right? Where a small business, you better personalize it. You better get to know your customers. Otherwise, the only advantage you have, you're blowing, right? And I know that's what's made you successful. So what are some things you've done in your business that, people could learn and possibly do in their business of any size?
Yeah, what we're talking about, this is a perfect example of taking and applying from a larger business. And even if you are a large business, maybe even a larger business than your own, I'm sure you're familiar with this, right? Ritz-Carlton, they have their whole surprise and delight budget. I think it's $2,500 per employee to surprise and delight customers. Well, I cannot afford $2,500 per spend per employee. So we took that and we basically scaled it to our business. So for us, it's $250 to surprise and delight our members. So I think something simple as, what is somebody doing that's way maybe at a higher grade than you that you can take and scale down for yourself? So that's one big thing. Another thing that has to do more with internal customers, right? That's your employees, which is just as important as your external customers. I can't remember the guy's name, but we borrowed this a while back. When we have someone come on board, we ask them in the interview process, give us a $20, $25 personal indulgence of yours. That might be somebody who's into fitness, their mug or their shaker. It could be a Starbucks gift card. It could be whatever, something minor. And then we just kind of brush it off. They might think, why is this guy asking me this? And then if we do end up hiring them, when they come on board, we have a handwritten card from the entire team welcoming them. And we have that $20, $25 indulgence, whatever it might be. It's John's, Kona coffee grounds, whatever it might be, ready to go. So right out of the gate, it shows them that we listened, we cared about them, we took in what matters to them. And it's just a great welcome. And it kind of sets the tone for us moving forward that, hey, this is how we're going to treat you. This is why we need you to treat our customers in the same manner. So those are just a couple things.
No, I love that. If it's not felt on the inside, it'll never be delivered on the outside. I love that. So, that $250 allowance you give, I know whenever that's brought up, it scares the hell out of business owners or leaders that, people are going to run rampant. How often is it used? And, has there ever been a case where it's like, what are you doing?
So we make sure that it has to be spent every month. So as a team, we talk about in every team meeting, this does not get applied to another part of the business. It has to get spent. So let's spend it wisely. So for us, it's been as small as getting somebody a Starbucks coffee to fix what seemed like a ruined day, to us physically going to pick somebody up, right? Like Enterprise, to make sure they got to our gym in the morning. So that really cost us nothing.
So you use that $250 monthly allowance. It could be just a surprise and delight to go above and beyond, or service recovery in case you maybe drop the ball.
Yep. It could be, I'll give you an example. One month we had a longtime member of ours, and she wrote me this long email. Hey, I know you guys are usually great service, but recently I haven't felt it. And she just kind of went on. And, when your service at heart, nothing just is like a stake in your heart than somebody questioning your level of service that you've given. And I basically said, hey, the next month is on us. It's free. Let us re-earn your business. And yeah, that was part of our budget for that month. And, that member has now still been with us for going on 7 years. So it can be used in recovery. It can be used for, just general purposes, but it's something that we have to spend every month. We don't want to just push it off to the side.
I love that. I love that.
Interested in bringing John or the DeJulius Group team to work with your team? Message us today to schedule a keynote, workshop to create your own customer experience action statement, or a full consulting project. Email Claudia@thedejuliusgroup.com to get started.
So tell my listeners about the book that you wrote, Crushing the Competition with Service. What are some, chapters or nuggets in there that they order? And we do have the link to how you can order Crushing the Competition with Service by Hank Ebeling on the show notes.
So the book was really it was written over COVID, and it was because we have lots of small business owners who were just kind of like, hey, how can I do this? Like, what's a simplistic approach, right, to creating that culture that I need? And so I basically kind of laid out what we use within my own business. We were talking about, in the trenches, actually doing it, not just theorizing. And so came up with what I call the LTS method. So leadership, team, systems, and strategies, and kind of take someone through those 3 areas. And when you can lock up those 3 areas in the right way, you can, I like to say, be the Ritz-Carlton of your industry. So the book kind of takes you through those 3 aspects. That's leadership, team, systems, and strategies. And, that book kind of grew into then creating recently just an online course. So kind of brought the book to life with a little more coaching, and that's called Superhero Service Super Profits.
Superhero Service Super Profits. Tell us about that.
So it's bringing the book to life. Really, it's, again, how do I create that culture? So when I'm not in the business can operate at a high level when it comes to service. I can hire this person and that person. And again, it won't matter because that culture has been entrenched. So it just kind of walks business owners through the process on how to do just that, right? To be the Ritz-Carlton of your industry, no matter how big you are, how small, where you are, or what industry you're in. And it was built by a small business owner, and it's for a small business owner because the videos are short. It's straight to the point. It's not one of these courses that are, 5-hour videos that nobody has time for. So it's right there in the wheelhouse for business owners who just need the content and need to start applying it as soon as possible.
And Hank, in your experiences, how do you filter out the employees that want to be a superhero versus the ones that just want to fold towels, sweep floors? Technically, I'm making this up. I am a great personal trainer, right? All that other stuff is foo-foo that, but I'm brilliant, and that's what I want to do, or cut hair, or be a consultant, or be an accountant. How do you look for that? And what's your experiences with that?
And how to find those individuals, if you will?
Find them or weed out the ones that all the training in the world probably wouldn't move the needle with them.
Yeah, I think, for us, what we create is we call it our ITM. So we call it our ideal team member. So what I did was I looked at the best team members we had. And at the beginning, it was nobody. It was just me. So in that case, it was theory. And I said, what would this person look like? And then once I actually started getting employees and I had those A players, well, what does that person look like? What are their attributes? And then when we go into an interview process, I have those attributes for that position, right? You got to have this for each position. And I can sit there and say, okay, does Melissa have the following attributes? I literally will go through there and put a check mark. If I'm seeing 2 of those attributes out of 10, that's probably not going to be the right fit, right? And so that's one thing. And the second thing is lead with culture right out of the gates. So for us, I know you talk about having a service vision, right? I like to talk about that too. Ours is care, commitment, and community. And for us, it's you walk in our gym and it's right there because that's how important it is. And anytime we get someone in the door, that's the first thing I talk about. I don't even talk anything about fitness, training.
Are you talking about a member or an employee?
This is an employee.
Okay.
They literally, first time they're in physically, point them to the wall. And I said, this is what we're all about. I don't care if you mess up on anything technical right out of the gates. If you don't have that knowledge out of the gates, this is what you can't mess up. This is our culture. If that's something that aligns with you, that seems like you want to be a part of, we can kind of move forward. So I think it's just setting the tone early on the expectation. And I think for a lot of people, that's refreshing. I've had lots of employees come in and almost be taken back in a good way that we're actually talking about those things and prioritizing those things. So
say those 3 C's again.
For us, it's care, commitment, and community.
And what do those stand for? Your culture?
That's our service vision. That's
okay.
Our culture. Yeah, that's what we kind of live and die by. For us, we want to care more than anyone else about our members. We want to create a welcoming community for them. And we want to be 100% committed to giving them the ultimate experience that they want.
I love it. Do you have any successful interview questions that you found that work, or interview techniques to, again, make sure you're because I always say anyone can wing it for half an hour right on an interview. A lot of interviews are, John, tell me a time when you did this, or what are your 2 drawbacks? And, I'm prepared to say, well, I'm a workaholic and, a perfectionist, right? Like, bam, I nailed that. Doesn't mean I am, but I was able to game the interview. Do you have anything that helps? I call it make the interview process ungameable, that they don't know what you're looking for?
For me, it's just, again, heavy hitters on service. So I like to ask, big thing is what people have done in the past generally is a predictor of the future. So I like to ask, hey, tell me a time when you delivered outstanding service. And I want to know, have they before? Maybe they have no work experience. Then I might ask, when you were in school, tell me a time when maybe in a class or in a club or in a sport, something that I can at least see that you might have done in the past that I can maybe predict in the future. And the other one generally I like to use is honestly just how can you help our culture from a customer service standpoint? Because I want to know, I want them thinking about that. And I want to see, are they on that same wavelength in terms of what's a priority for us? I know that's nothing groundbreaking, but I think oftentimes, especially small business owners, they don't even touch on that subject. It's just
listen. You keep on saying small business owners, but because larger companies, they don't touch on that as well. And that's the secret sauce is remaining small and intimate while you grow bigger. So I think a lot of what you're saying applies to any leader across the board, from a culture standpoint, from delivering on superhero service, and especially increasing the service aptitude. So I love it. A few more nuggets of what businesses can do right now to provide a better experience externally.
Yeah, I think one of the things to do, and it seems pretty obvious and simple, but it's just never done, is kind of do a self-audit. Like, go look on review sites for your business. Get out there. If you're not in the trenches on a day-to-day basis, maybe some of you were and you're not anymore, talk to your customers, talk to your team members and ask them, hey, what's getting in the way from you delivering a high level of service right now? Is it I'm not giving you the tools? Is it you're not happy? What do you need from me? Gather all that information and essentially do a self-audit. Look for those areas that might be weaknesses and then kind of attack those. I think that's the simplest place to start, right? Look for commonalities. You might see a common thread maybe on review sites. Somebody's always saying, hey, Melissa doesn't deliver great service when we come in. You might see nobody ever uses my name when I come in for an appointment. Something that you maybe are seeing over and over, and it could be positive or negative. Make note of that and then take swift action on it.
What are some non-negotiables that you train your employees to do?
So our big thing, we have 13 service points. Might be a lot for some people, but one is just
like journey mapping.
Yeah, it's just kind of our non-negotiable When I'm doing our one-on-one with our team members, when I'm looking at them in their onboard, I don't care what they mess up from a technical standpoint. I can't see these service points not being met. So like to give you an example, one is we call it names. So I got to hear, welcome, John. Good morning, John. Within our sessions, I got to hear your name being used. Another one for us is to be on stage, right? So when you walk in, doesn't matter what's going on personally, you walk through that door, just like Disney, those, Mickey and Minnie coming up from below ground, you're on stage immediately and you have to act that way. And kind of another one for us is breaks the golden rule. You know this, but treat others how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated. Some people, that might not sound right because they're used to the original golden rule, right? Treat others how you want to be treated. So those are just a couple for us that we like to emphasize. But again, we have 13 of them. That was just a few.
This is awesome. I mean, you've given us and our listeners so many great things. Your 3 C's, care, commitment, community, your ITMs, ideal team members and what you look for, LTS, leadership, team, systems and strategy, and just all these non-negotiables. It's just so many things. You've given us so much value. To wrap it up, anything you want to leave our listeners with? And I am going to have in the show notes a website where you could follow Hank on social media, a link to his book, and a link to him. Anything else, Hank, you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, what I would leave you with is, I think, and John, this customer service and customer experience tends to get labeled as soft, right? It's soft skills, it's foo-foo. I always joke and say, a teddy bear is soft, but customer service, customer experience, it's really just an intelligent business strategy. And I think those of you listening, leaders, business owners, large and small, don't think of it as, well, that's just a soft skill or that's not that important. Customer service is either going to happen or it's not. And so you either take charge of the reins and control it, or it's going to be controlled, right? And so just think of it. Customer service can be a revenue generator for you, or it can be a revenue detractor. And I think a lot of times leaders don't think of it that way. They just think of it as service. It's something we do, or, they just kind of brush it off to the side. But at the end of the day, it is your best competitive advantage. And really, it's the cheapest competitive advantage you got, right? Spending endless dollars on ads and, all sorts of things that you can think about. This is the easiest, maybe not easiest to execute, but it's the cheapest way.
I love it. Hank Ebeling, bling, bling. Thank you so much for bringing your passion for customer service and employee experience. I've really enjoyed watching your career unfold, both as an entrepreneur and a subject matter expert on customer experience. So I really appreciate you being on the Customer Service Revolution podcast.
John, thanks for having me. And, hey, credit to you for leading the charge, being on that Mount Rushmore of service experts. So thank you.
I appreciate it. And thank you, Revolutionaries, for another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. We will see you next week.
We appreciate your reviews. Please be sure to share your comments and let us know what you're enjoying most on the podcast. And to hear more episodes, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the Customer Service Revolution.